Hey everyone, jumping on here before we start the episode. In today's episode, we will be talking about topics surrounding the body, such as surgery, bodily fluids, and pain sensations. So if that's not your vibe, feel free to skip this one. Hello friends, bienvenidos. My name is Jen, aka Jen Kahlo on social media, your local witchy friend and intuitive guide through the occult. As always, my lovely husband and co-host is David, aka Premier Pulse on social media.
Hi everyone. On today's episode, Jen explains psychic surgeries.
Welcome to the show. Grab a chair, make yourself at home. Jen's got stories to share. You'll never feel alone.
The evil eye was a really good topic. Very misunderstood. Did you ever understand the topic after thinking about it? I know sometimes when it marinates, it makes more sense.
Yeah. Do you want the real answer or the best answer for the podcast? No, I still don't really get it.
Okay.
But I think, it's just one of those things I think I won't understand. It's, again, like we mentioned last time, I think part of it was also just my general understanding from my lived experience. While I've been surrounded by it, my family wasn't really into the occult too much, in the sense we talked about it. It was more like you hear about it and you're surrounded by it, but it's not really something that dictates my life. So everything about the evil I've heard just in passing conversation or anecdotally, and I learned most of it through living with you and the episode. But I still have questions, but I think I'm done with that topic personally.
Okay.
But we did have a comment from Carmen at Craze89 on Instagram.
C. Reyes.
Oh, C. Reyes.
Not crazy.
I didn't say crazy. I said craze. So huge shout out, Carmen. Thank you so much for posting. I don't know if you've posted before. Your social doesn't look familiar to me, but thank you so much for posting. They have a wonderful story. So I love this topic. In my family, the evil eye isn't only about evil intentions. It could also come from too much energy being given to a person or child. Like if I see a baby and I think they are super cute, I have to physically touch them, or we will give them quote unquote ojo. I actually experienced this in Mexico. When I was 10 and being baptized, the entire day everyone kept telling me how cute I was and giving me a lot of attention. At night, when we had the party, I remember I got really bad headaches and was crying. My aunt took me to a neighbor's house and cleaned me with an egg. And immediately after, I felt better and I fell asleep. We do limpias on my nieces and nephews all the time when they are fussy, just in case they get ojo. And I've seen the limpia work. And I am a big believer in them. I just want to add that Jenna is the best. She's actually the reason I found your podcast. So Jenna, thank you so much for the recommendations. I really appreciate that. And great story. It's kind of like a battery, I think. Once the battery's full, you can't keep giving it more juice or else it'll malfunction. That's kind of the gist I got. What I do like though is we talked last time. I think with the ojo, it's not necessarily bad intention all the time. It's just an overabundance of energy. Mm-hmm. And in Carmen's story here, I think that's a great example of there is no malintention there, right? But a lot of attention and a lot of quote unquote energy given to a child it can be a lot. Now, on the scientific basis, in our culture, for whatever reason, little kids' parties are an excuse to turn up with the aunts, the uncles, the primos. So you'll go to a 1-year-old party and there's more beer than toys. So my thought process is a 1-year-old can't handle all that commotion and energy, and they're put to bed in the chair outside. A 1-year-old party in a Latino household can be a little bit different than a 1-year-old party in any other household. So I don't think it'd be the evil eye, but I do think it's just a lot for a baby. We recently went to a baby shower. The turn up was crazy. But that's what's beautiful about our culture. It's fun, it's loud, it's rambunctious, but there's a lot of community and involvement.
They busted out the Blackberry Crown Royale. It's actually really good.
It was great. Yeah, it was really good. Mercy at Mercy094 on Instagram. Hi, Mercy. I really appreciate David's confusion on this episode. I really appreciate it too, because like you and I aren't infallible, you know, we're not the end all. So I think it's nice when we maybe don't grasp a concept and we can live with that. Because I was also confused and I benefited from the extra explanation by Jen. Now that I have a greater understanding of evil eye, I'm ready to purchase a spiritual gun for my home. All right, let us know what you get, Mercy. Question. So this is a follow-up question for the last episode, so we'll answer it now. If someone has evil eye placed on them, how long does it stay on that individual? I don't think there's a trial period, right?
Yeah, it's not like a standard time. It's just like anything. Like, you know, one person may get over a cold in a day and another person, it may linger for a month. So it really depends on like what you do.
To treat it.
Yeah, your spiritual protection, like how resistant you are to that type of stuff, how strong it was from the other person. Like there are a lot of variables. It just depends.
And like Genesis said last time, like if you feel that maybe you have received the evil eye, you know, consult with your spiritual guide. In this case, if you want it to be Genesis, reach out to her. Shameless plug. But no, I mean, there's ways to kind of see, you know, where you're at according to the podcast episode last week. I just say kind of live your life with best intentions and you should be okay. But no, great question. Another quick shout out. I love it. Mozzie has reached out to us via Instagram. And she went out and bought a bunch of Liquid Death, which we've made several recommendations on the podcast for that drink. It's one of our favorite drinks. So I just thought it was really cool. She's like, keep influencing me. So Liquid Death, if you get a hold of this, we have people taking our recommendations. Hit us up for a collaboration.
I don't know if I've mentioned this before. Damn, at this point, we're at episode 33. So I'm starting to lose track of what we said, but
yeah, it took me a lot off guard because it wasn't during this last episode. I think, I don't know what episode it was, but we've mentioned Liquid Death multiple times.
Yeah.
So
I don't know if I mentioned this, but like in some parts of the spiritual community, people believe that Liquid Death is bad because they're like, words have power and it could influence your drink. Basically, like a la Dr. Yamamoto that believes that like words have power, and they do, like, to a certain degree, right?
Yeah, but there's a play on words. There's no ill intention on it. And it's a great drink, so.
Yeah, but because of that, some people are like boycotting it because they're like, oh, you're gonna like add to your death quicker because it has the word death in it, and it's like, no.
They sell water. Relax, people.
Good water.
So yeah, let's try to work on a sponsorship from them. I actually, funny enough, went to their affiliate page just to see like what's good, and maybe I'll fill out an application, see what we can get.
Nice.
All right, today we're getting into psychic surgery. I do just want to give a disclaimer. Anything and everything we say is not by professionals by any chance. We're a happy couple who discuss fun topics that we find interesting. So all of this is just our like Google research, you know. If you are suffering from any medical illness or anything that requires physical attention from a medical professional, please make sure to seek out medical support and not necessarily rely purely on anything that you hear on this podcast. Again, these are just topics that we find very interesting. So, if you need a doctor, go see a doctor. And if you don't have insurance,
move to Canada.
Yeah, move to Canada. But
or Germany.
With that said, psychic surgery, what is it all about, Genesis?
Psychic surgery is exactly what it sounds like, surgery performed by a psychic.
And we did touch on this on a previous episode, and I think that's what spurred that, like, we should maybe make its own episode, right?
Yeah, Crystal Ann, which is Waxy Aesthetics on Instagram, wanted us to talk about this a little more. Mm-hmm. So, and side note, if there are any topics that you want us to mention, June is coming up and we still haven't finalized the topic. So if you want us to talk about something specific, definitely let us know.
Yeah, I've noted. So, again, for anybody who's a new listener or hasn't listened, we actually have a plethora of episode topics that we have ready to talk about, but we keep getting suggestions. So we are knocking those out. So if you have a suggestion, that'll go to the top of the line. But right now we have like a catalog of what, at least for the next, we'll finish out the year and maybe a little bit of middle of next year worth of topics.
Yeah.
But if you have something you want to hear, let us know and it'll shoot it to the top.
Yeah, we will not run out of topics.
Yeah.
But if there's one that you want to hear first, definitely let us know. But anyway, freaking petrifying, in my opinion, to get surgery intuitively. It's a common scam in countries without standardized medicine. That's where people can get away with it the most. I know that like people do some like underground medical stuff here, like veneers by, Tasha down the street, and like
Or
that's not good because
Botox parties.
Yeah, well, no, Botox parties are usually legit, but sometimes they're like they have to be licensed for. Well, they don't have to.
No, they don't have to, because you hear about like there's scary stories of like people using cement fillers or like, well, Botox is the botulism bacteria. So if you're actually not certified to do it, you can cause a lot of damage.
This is true, actually. Yeah, never mind. Anyway, but yeah, but straight up like cutting someone open, like, yeah, that's more like in other countries. If someone was performing surgeries in their backyard, I feel like that would get swooped up real quick. But anyway, so these scammers pose as someone with divine intuition who can do a better job than medical doctors and actually heal someone. Obviously, I know I'm a mystic, but this is too...
There's hard lines for you.
This is a hard line.
Yeah.
It's just so interesting because like medical doctors normally have to specialize in a small part of the body for like 6+ years.
Correct.
In a small part of the body. And these people are like, I'll do from your brain to your toe. Like, what do you want? People that, have claimed to do psychic surgery have been caught using organs of small animals to show that they removed like a bad mass from a person, or go as far as like actually not cutting someone but saying they did, or even claiming like I pulled it out of you like in the astral or like in a way that you can't see.
Like another realm.
Yeah.
They hit you with the trust me, bro, you're good.
Pretty much. I don't know if y'all have seen Saw X, but that's basically like the premise of how he starts going wild again.
It's really good.
Yeah.
I think if you have the time to watch that movie and it doesn't totally creep you or gore you out, that movie is a great example of what like a psychic surgery can be. In this case, though, they didn't, spoiler alerts, in this case, they didn't like claim to be like a metaphysical thing. They just told them like, hey, we did the surgery and it's good. Like they were posing as medical professionals, but they really didn't do anything.
Yeah. There, they just claimed to be a doctor and they weren't. Versus this, it's like, I'm a psychic healer. I get my intuition from a divine source. Therefore, I know how to do this.
Yeah.
But yeah, my big concerns are like diseases, permanent damage,
Infection, sepsis.
or just delaying the care that you need. A lot of this, I'm sure it still goes on, but like some of the more famous ones were before the AIDS epidemic. So before HIV, there's still a lot of stuff you could do.
A lot of bloodborne diseases out
Yeah,
there. Yeah,
exactly. But even if someone doesn't know what procedure they need specifically, or even if they feel well, the scammer may still say like, I need to remove an evil mass from you.
Correct.
And just the shock factor of like the smell, seeing like a tiny mass, maybe like they might use like a needle to like prick them, but just like if it's in an area with a lot of like nerve endings, it feels like more horrible than it is, and they feel like they're being cut up, but really they're just being like poked. Like, I don't know, there's a lot that can like trick the senses.
Yeah. Okay, so I just want to do like a quick summary before we go into like what it is. So basically, psychic surgery is just the idea of a spiritual / metaphysical practitioner who is not a physician or has a medical background performing either invasive surgery or perceived invasive surgery on a patient to help better their ailment.
Yeah.
Okay. Did I got that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I haven't heard of like any renowned person doing that now. But when I was doing like my research on, a lot of the research I did was in Spanish, just because of a famous case study. But I saw on YouTube some people being like, oh, I know like esta señora in this part of Mexico, and like I swear by her. So it still happens, but there's not like a famous one person that we know of right now.
Well, and that's the interesting part about like the medical and the scientific community. Like, I think today in the year, the year of our Lord 2024, at this point we have a better general understanding of biology, anatomy, susceptibility to diseases, but it started somewhere, right? So unfortunately, like, there is basis to the background of medicine, of like exploratory surgeries. And even nowadays, even with all our imaging, EKGs, MRIs, x-rays, like, I don't know how common it is, and my base knowledge is watching House, but like there are times where if there's no answers, I think the medical community can still say like, hey, unfortunately, like our best shot is an exploratory surgery. We don't know what we're going to find, but I don't know. Actually, I don't know how common that is. Do you think any of our listeners are medical professionals?
Maybe. Oh, I don't know who listens.
We probably should have researched it, but I think exploratory surgeries are still part of the like medical community.
But from my understanding, they only do a specific area. They're not just like, let's cut you open from like throat to pelvis.
Correct.
Open up.
House would cut you open, throat to pelvis. But yes, no, it's very specialized. Another one that's a little like on that basis is like neurological surgery, because we still don't really understand the brain that well. Mm-hmm. When you have open, I know we probably should have put a trigger warning. We might go back and put a trigger warning on this episode. But when you're doing neurological surgery, the brain is still super unexplored. Like the 10 pounds of gray matter, like we have a general idea of how things work, but if you're ever under, like you're awake. We don't have pain receptors in our actual brain, so we don't feel it. However, they're kind of keeping you awake to see that they don't poke something that can affect your being, basically language, motor skills, functioning, reasoning. And that's a little bit of like, maybe not shot in the dark, but it's scary to think about.
I'm shivering over here. Yeah. I'm like, ugh.
But so that's the idea behind psychic surgeries. Yeah, like I mentioned, take your ailments to the real professionals.
I have had some bad doctors though, and do get a second opinion. Yeah, but still like from people that are qualified
if you can afford it.
Yeah. No, I've had bad doctors misdiagnose
that's
me.
True.
You've seen that.
Yeah,
but
that's true.
I think I would hedge my bets on a Joe Schmo doctor than like a psychic surgeon for sure.
Well, and it's all about also, I mean, unfortunately or fortunately, like I feel like my family, part of your family has had to navigate a lot of like the medical community with different bigger things in life, and a lot of it is about like self-advocation, right? Like
absolutely
understand your diagnosis. Mm-hmm. I know my family, what we do is we never try to like go alone to like a big appointment for like a family member. We always try to be there for one another, ask questions, understanding. Like there's not a stupid question that you can ask when it has to do with your health. I even go as far as like, hey, I'm going to record this if that's okay. I've never had a doctor say like, no, but I need it for my own like edification later on. Because not only you're trying to process logic, but you're trying to process emotion, right? It's hard to remove that aspect of like your emotional feelings while you're getting bad news. and then like having to process what like was said to you. So that's also the scary part about not the spiritual scammers, the psychic surgeons, right? They prey off that like vulnerability, because you're not going to a psychic surgeon when everything's like going great. You're going out of desperation or lack of medical resources.
Yeah. One of the most famous psychic surgeons who still has some people that may swear by her to this day, her name is Pachita, and she was from Mexico. She died in 1979. But before then, she was very renowned for her healing abilities. Like, people all over the world knew about her. Like, there's no equivalent to her that I know of right now. Interestingly enough, she would accept anyone with like any illness,
PPO, HMOs.
yeah, regardless of their ability to pay. She would do everything from like the common cold to ALS to whatever, literally. Like, she was down for all
But
of
it
it.
was, she approached everything with psychic surgery?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, which I'm like, what do you cut for a common cold? But then it's like evil, you know?
Yeah.
I'm going to get rid of the evil in you. Like, it's like, I don't think you have to cut people up for a common cold, but okay.
Well, there was, the idea before of like bloodletting or
Yeah, that's true.
leeches to take things out. I mean, that's the thing, right? Like, sometimes if it works, just because it works doesn't mean it's the right answer, right? There's so many different reasons why something could work. And that's the problem. A lot of this stuff happens because it's anecdotal. Like, my cousin's wife's nephew was suffering from this, and they went to go see this person and it got fixed. It's like, okay, there's like 1,000,001 things that could happen between those degrees of separation.
Yeah. I wonder, this is such a random thought, but I wonder if someone was like, my pet needs surgery, if she would have been like, yeah, I can do it, or she would have been like,
No animals.
I'm not a psychic
I'm not a
veterinarian.
psychic veterinarian. Yeah. Funny enough, we have received a request to do an episode on Pachita. She seems like a very interesting person, and maybe that's somebody we can explore. But
We're going to explore her a lot right now for like the next 15 minutes.
okay,
So.
perfect. All right,
Pretty much. But yeah, anyone from like common people to like famous people, but both like in and outside of the Mexico type of famous people would go and visit her. So especially like in the 70s, there was, the big like hippie revival and like interest in like alternative and metaphysical stuff. So if you asked her how she knew how to do this, it's like, how do you know how to do like an operation on a liver versus an operation on a toe? Like, where did you study, or how did you do this? She would say like, it's not me. It's the spirit of the Aztec emperor Cuauhtémoc, something like that.
Cuauhtémoc?
Yeah.
Yeah, Cuauhtémoc.
Cuauhtémoc?
Yeah.
Okay. So she doesn't even remember. She's like, I don't remember cutting people open. Like, he possesses me and he works through me. And she used the same rusty, dull knife on everybody. There was one specific knife that she would use, and people would describe it as like old and rusty and dull.
Not even sharpened.
Not even sharpened.
And she would actually cut in, or
So we'll talk about that. So the first example, she performed surgery on a famous jazz musician from the U.S. around that time called Charles Mingus. He said, he had ALS, and he was just like, I don't know what to do for this anymore. How would you describe ALS? It's like a neurodegenerative.
neurodegenerative disease that affects your muscular system. It's more colloquially known as Lou Gehrig's disease, and it's really bad. I've known some people who have passed away from it. Basically, what it does, it attacks, I think, your muscular and nervous system. And again, external muscles is one thing, but your lungs and your heart are all muscular systems, and eventually you just shut down. What's really sad though is like it's gradual. So it's not like you wake up one day. So you kind of can see it, you feel it coming on. You start losing, motor processes. You start losing use of your extremities. What makes it worse though, I could be wrong, it could be case by case, but I don't know if you lose cognition. So you're very aware the
Yeah.
whole time. Like the mind doesn't really deteriorate. It's just the body giving out.
Yeah, and he was a musician, and his big thing was like, I wish I could play again. So she focused on his wrists. And he said that he felt her cutting into him, and he described it similar to like Jesus and how he was like severely, damaged in like his hands and wrists and stuff. So he swore like, yeah, this freaking hurt. But his wife, when he was asleep, she peeked under the bandage. There was no cut and no blood. So that was very interesting. But she didn't want like to stop the placebo effect because he was very happy and very hopeful. And she didn't want to take that away from him. So his family would even like change his bandages and be like, okay, we're going to disinfect the wound now. And like,
They let him live the delusion.
yeah. And like, because, he can't move his muscles, it's not like he could check for himself, right?
Yeah.
So they would basically like play along for him. He ended up dying a few months later of ALS complications. So she did not, in fact, heal him. So yeah, very, very sad.
And then he was never able to play or anything.
No.
So he just personally felt better.
Yeah, he felt hopeful. Like, oh, I feel great. Like, this is going to kick in any minute. Yeah.
That's really sad.
Yeah, very sad.
We'll keep going into it, but there's probably no way of knowing. But like, what do you think her intentionality was? Do you think she felt she was helping people? Do you think she like knew what she was doing was maybe ambiguously immoral? Or because there's also like the thing, right? Like you can actually believe you're helping people, and obviously like there's repercussions, but like I wonder where her morality stood as far as like, was she a scammer or was she a believer in her own practice?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. It's just, so I feel like though she had to have been in on it, and I'll explain why. So she had like assistants, and people would come in, the room would be dimly lit, so you can't actually see what's going on. But at the same time, she would also be like, if there are any skeptics out there, you can come watch me. But the room was dimly lit, so it's like, how convenient. She would pour alcohol on people to like disinfect the area. At least she did that. But she had these assistants, right? So like people would say like, I would smell this, I would feel the blood, but it's like, how do we know that someone didn't like have fake blood, or like a fake organ or something? She even went as far as like, there was another guy, he's kind of famous in the metaphysical world, Alejandro Jodorowsky, who he's still alive. He's 95 years old today, but he went because he had liver problems, and she said that she took out his liver and she had a brand new liver to give him that materialized out of nowhere, and she put it back in. But like, if someone asked to like look at Jodorowsky's liver, like, oh, I don't have it anymore. So I feel like it would be different if someone, like, I could see someone believing that they're helping if they're like, I cured them just with like my hand, I transmuted healing energy. I could see how someone's delusional, but to be like,
It's very intentional.
yeah, to be like, I have this organ for you, I feel like you can't be delusional at that point. You would have to like plan ahead. How am I going to materialize this sleight of hand?
Yeah.
And then obviously, like, if it's animal organs, it's going to smell bad, like it's going to feel icky. Like, I feel like, that people are praying around, and just like, it could be all like hysteria. People, like, even if they're skeptics, like if they're in that environment, they could just get caught up in the moment.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. The idea of hysteria also has some merit to it. And when was her like active practice? It was in the 60s and 70s?
I believe it was like 50s to 70s.
Okay, so documentation, videography, like it wasn't as prevalent. So a lot of it could have spread by word of mouth.
Yeah, Jodorowsky wrote a book on her. Interestingly enough, Jodorowsky even admitted, like, even if she didn't physically heal me, I felt better. and like that's what counts at the end of the
And
day.
that's true. I mean, it's irrefutable that there is a such thing as the placebo effect. I mean, that's kind of what I'll use as my example as well. But yeah, I don't know. It's a lot to process when you're going through all that.
Interestingly enough, I was reading up on her a few months ago when someone suggested looking her up, and I can't find the article anymore. But I read an article about a person who was a skeptic, but they had like constant like earaches and like hearing problems. And they were just like, I think they were also a journalist, and they were like, I have nothing to lose. This is a great opportunity. Let me just go for the lulz.
And they went to her.
Yeah. And she cut like their ear, like, I don't know what it's called, but like the side of the ear.
Yeah.
And they felt like a sharp pain. And then for weeks, they felt like a high pitched ringing, but then it went away, and the earaches also went away. And they were like, I can't explain it. I didn't have a scar, but the problem went away.
Yeah.
And like, that's what counts. So I think that was probably also a placebo effect one. Another disturbing account was that someone was like, I'm good. I'm feeling better. I don't want to do this anymore. And she didn't let them leave.
They're like, there's still more to be done.
Yeah. She was basically like, I can get your liver from your abdomen, or I can cut you from the neck down and get your abdomen that way.
Jeez.
Or your liver that way. Basically, like, are we going to do this the easy way or the hard way? But then, like, when they came back to her, she was like, oh, that wasn't me. That was,
that was the dude?
Yeah, that was
Cotemo?
Yeah, that was him.
Are there any, like, recorded interviews with her? Audio, video? It'd be interesting to research.
They did have videos they did have TV by that time. They have a lot of pictures of her. I don't know if they like recorded her. I was really trying to find it, and I couldn't find anything more than like pictures.
Listeners out there, if you ever heard of her, let us know. As the community grows, it's really interesting to see what like some people are like, oh, I know about this, or I know about that. So, love to hear your feedback.
And then she had like so she had her, for a lack of a better word, operating room. And then she had like a healing like
room waiting area,
sort of like an ICU,
like a
post-op. There we go, that's the word I'm looking for. She had a post-op with like a bunch of people. And they had to lay still for anywhere from like 30 minutes to a few hours depending on what she recommended.
What city was she based on? DF?
I want to say it was either Culiacan or Cuernavaca.
Oh, okay.
It's one of the C's.
Got it. Okay. Super interesting. Yeah, I think that's the most famous spiritual or psychic surgeon that we came across. Any personal examples with you of times that you've seeked out or have involuntarily been exposed to medical procedures?
The closest thing I could think of like a trust me bro was I needed some vaccines in Mexico, and my family was like, oh, your tia could just vaccinate you. And I was like, what the hell? I'm like, she's not a doctor. Like, she doesn't. They're like, oh, she knows, it's fine. I'm like, no, dude. I do have one cousin that's a nurse. I would have let her vaccinate me. But like
beyond that,
I'm like, no.
I know, we heal ourselves with the huevo. Oh, that needs to be one of our topics. We keep bringing it up, and we keep saying we're going to do an episode. So maybe that'll be a June topic.
On what?
The huevos, the eggs.
Oh, the egg cleanses?
Because I still don't know what it is.
Okay.
And I have enough people we can go to.
You don't know what it is? And your grandma does them?
Yeah, I just don't understand the concept. Because, like, so you rub the egg, but then, like, you're supposed to read it. The peaks, the valleys, everything.
Yes.
Do you know what they mean?
Yeah, they're ojo. You can count how much ojo is there.
I think there's more to it, though.
You can also see, like, the faces of the people and, like, other stuff, but...
Definitely worth an episode, I think.
Yeah,
so.
Anyway.
Cool. Examples, I don't have any, like, psychic surgery examples, but this last weekend, your boy ended up in the emergency room.
When we started dating, he told me,
tell the story.
Like clockwork, I will end up in the ER once a year.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, no way.
And I think I told you this like month 1 or 2. Like
I think you told me like the second date or the first date.
Very early on in
like
the relationship.
very early on.
Just a heads up, I go to the ER quite a bit.
And yeah,
I've kept true to my promise.
Yes.
So, I didn't have any psychic surgeries, thank goodness. Shout out to our local hospital. I think they did a great job. But your boy got gout. For those of you who are not familiar with gout, it is a buildup of something called uric acid. And what that does, that uric acid can build up in the joints and crystallize. So when they crystallize, they form microscopic crystals that basically when you move the joint, it like scrapes up the joint and cuts it up. That is the most painful thing I've ever experienced in my life. I have never experienced that amount of pain before. Genesis saw me in a state that she's never seen me before. I don't really think I have a high pain tolerance, but Genesis says I do. It is the worst thing. A couple of things. Again, reference to pop culture, my favorite show, King of the Hill. There's a King of the Hill episode where Bobby Hill, the child of the family, gets gout, and he makes it look super fun. They give him like a cane and a little rascal, and it doesn't look like it's that serious. So that was really my only ideology of what gout was. It is not fun. It was really bad. I'm doing a lot better. I'm so grateful for modern medicine. Like Saturday, I couldn't walk. I literally Friday I couldn't walk. It got to a point where like I think my body was shutting down from all the pain. And then Saturday we're doing errands, and that's literally because of modern medicine. So, relating to the episode of today with the psychic surgeries, it's like you can believe as much as you want, but you also, do what you want with your life. But me personally, like I would always seek out like medical attention. However, I will say with the amount of pain that I went through, I can see where you get to a point of desperation. Like luckily I was in the ER. I knew like things logically were going to be okay. But pain can be so debilitating that like you're willing to almost do anything. I got to a point where I was like, if they chop off my leg, like I'm okay with that just to make the pain go away. It was really, really bad. And there are things you can do. Like I was trying to do breathing and grounding as much as I could, and I would get a few moments of respite, but I'm talking like 30 seconds. But those 30 seconds were better than nothing. So there's a little bit of like the mind over matter. But yeah, it was really bad. Even the nurse was like, it's one of the most painful things you can experience. So I see why people do seek out treatments. People who live with chronic pain, like luckily for me, it was very acute. But like if I had chronic pain and there was no solution, you try to find what's going to make you feel better. So nothing against the people who seek out these types of treatments of like psychic surgeries. But I think that's where the problem of morality comes in, right? Like as someone who just experienced tremendous pain, like I can see, how trying to find anything to make things better, like I would go through any lengths. So it's just unfortunate there's people that prey on that vulnerability.
Yeah. Like if someone was like, can you diagnose me with tarot? I'd be, no.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you have gout, let me know. If it was as painful as it was for you, I'd be really interested. What's crazy about gout, it affects like older people, and it's nicknamed the rich man's disease. And I was like, I wish I had a little bit of money to go along with the diagnosis, because all I got was the pain. But yeah. All right. We do have some questions from Mercy. Thank you so much, Mercy, for always blessing us with your questions and participation. She says, how do practitioners explain their ability to perform these surgeries without causing physical harm? Well, they don't. I think they don't. I think like what we said, they hit you with the trust me, I know what I'm doing. You need to have faith. You need to have belief, and take it or leave it. Right?
Yeah, it's like I'm the chosen one. I just know because I was blessed with this gift. Mm-hmm, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then that's the thing. They could be causing physical harm.
Absolutely.
It's not, and I don't think they guarantee that they won't. I think I mean, that's also true with real medicine. It's like they make you sign a lot of waivers. Like, do you consent to treatment? Do you consent to this? Know that this is the worst case scenario. Obviously, because there's lawsuits and malpractice insurance, so they have to cover their bases. But it's the same with these people. I don't think they're saying like, hey, you're going to be okay. They're saying, I'm going to fix you, but don't hold me to any regard, right?
Yeah. And then the second question, why do you think psychic surgery has attracted a following despite the lack of scientific evidence? Like David said, like at some point you just get so desperate.
Yeah.
And you have no other options, whether that's like there's no medicine around you, period, or like it's too expensive. Especially in this freaking country, medicine is so expensive. It is ridiculous.
And it's also a lack of education, right? If you grew up in it and that's all you know, then that's where you're going to turn to, right?
Yeah.
You may not have been exposed to understanding what, medical like necessity is.
Yeah. And then what do you think the future holds for psychic surgery? Will it grow in popularity or fade away?
I think we've plateaued on it. I think
It's not going to get more popular.
Yeah, I think that's something that's probably always going to be around. There's always going to be a charlatan. There's always going to be somebody preying on people. And again, I don't know how much of it happens here in the U.S., but like, again, colloquially, I know it through like the culture in like Mexico, and we've talked about this topic before, and I brought it up when I was growing up. There was like a show like that had like all the paranormal stuff, and it would show like the psychic surgeries. So I only know it through our culture, but I'm sure there's like others, right?
Yeah. I think I've seen that it's big in like the Philippines and stuff too.
Oh, over there too. Yeah. So as far as the future, I think we're okay with the information superhighway. You want to hope that people do a little more of their research, but
Now that a lot more of us are connected and like can Google stuff easily. But then again, there are also like people that have the resources here that still believe some kind of interesting things. So
yeah. I think what's also really sucky is like the vulnerability, kind of going a little bit back to the Manda episode. Like, you didn't really have any say about having to crawl on your knees, right? And like, I'm sure there's parents who maybe think they're doing their best for their kids, and like, to a certain extent, you can't blame them because like, they're probably like, yeah, this is what my kid needs. But the kid has no say or autonomy to say, hey, I don't want this done to me, or please don't like cut me open to take out like bad energy. But it kind of just goes back to, intention doesn't always like mean it's going to have a good outcome, right?
absolutely. It's like that saying, the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think this is where it all starts. Like, the idea of healing somebody obviously comes from a noble place. It comes from the intention of making the body better. But God, it can go wrong so quickly.
Absolutely.
All right. Any last thoughts on this topic? Very interesting. Again, we are going to go back. I think at this point we do have to put a disclaimer on this. So,
yeah.
You'll hear it at the beginning of this episode.
Trigger warning goods.
We have some ideas for next month's we have some ideas for next month's topics. You can find them on Instagram, but there's a little bit of time. So, like Genesis said, if there's anything you're interested in, let us know, because we do need a little bit of time to research. But these last 2 episodes have been like listener suggested, right?
Yeah. I also started a TikTok because now that it's Gemini season, I'm challenging myself to try to finally figure it out. I feel like such a boomer. I'm like, I don't know how to edit a video.
¿Cómo se le abre aquí en el face?
Yeah, pretty much. ¿Cómo se hace esta cosa? Ay, que lo moví. But yeah, so my TikTok is also at Giancarlo, just like my Instagram, GENKAHLO, and tarotwithgenesis@gmail.com if you would rather get in touch by email.
We're on the TikTok. Are we going to start doing dances and stuff with Lucy?
You with Lucy, yes. By myself, heck no.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thank you everyone so much for listening. Remember, the magic within you makes the world a more beautiful place. Blessed be, and signing off.
Bye, everyone.